Hello, Fathers Faithful. Thank you for joining me for Sunday School. I want you to know that I'm coming to you with a heavy heart this morning. There have been a couple of deaths in our church family. One was very, very tragic and unexpected, and I just ask you to pray for those families. Pray for the Boyd family and pray for the Bodenheimer family. Text today comes from the book of James, chapter 4, verses 13 through 16. Come now, you who say, today or tomorrow we will go to such and such a city, spend a year there, buy and sell, and make a profit. Whereas you do not know what will happen tomorrow. For what is your life? It is even a vapor that appears for a little time and then vanishes away. Instead, you ought to say, if the Lord wills, we shall live and do this and that. But now you boast in your arrogance. All such boasting is evil. There is a phrase that my Aunt Betty Jean said, and if she said it once, she said it 100 times. When I was growing up, she was one of the most godly people that I had ever known, and she had a great influence on my life. And more than anybody in my childhood, I remember her saying, Lord willing, Lord willing. If you grew up in a Christian home, then you probably heard it in people that you knew too in your family, especially some of the older people. They would say stuff like, I'll see you next Sunday, Lord willing. We're planning a garden this year, Lord willing. Or we're planning a trip to take a vacation, Lord willing. So it wasn't superstition and it wasn't negative. It was actually biblical wisdom. James teaches us that in every plan that we make, every single one, that we should be saying, if the Lord wills, that it be done. I actually was working on this lesson right before I got the call from my sister. David and I were on the way to a job he had in North Myrtle Beach. I was going to ride with him. And Sheila gave me the most horrible, horrible news. One of our Father's Faithful Sunday school class members and one of our dearest friends for many, many years had died. And I'm still in shock about the way it happened. But I just want you to please, please again remember Mike Bodenheimer's family and his wife, Wanda. And their whole family, Jason and Jennifer and her family too. So what is James warning us about in this passage? Why should we say, Lord willing? And what does the Bible say about planning without talking to God about it? Well, James is actually addressing a group of businessmen, merchants, and traders. They had a destination. They had a timeline. They had a business plan. They had a goal, and all that sounds reasonable. There's nothing wrong with making plans. Planning is not the problem. It's the presuming that we do that is the problem. Because they planned like they were in control of their time. And they planned like they were in control of their success. And like they were in control of their futures. And that God didn't even need to be consulted. They laid out their entire schedule with no prayer. They didn't depend on God. Evidently, they had no humility. They didn't acknowledge God. And this is why James called it arrogance in verse 16. So this version of this attitude today might be something like this: when I retire, or next year I'm going to, or when I get a raise, I'm going to do this, or one of these days. None of these things that we say are wrong, but sometimes we speak as if we are the master of our own universe. And James says, come on now, pay attention. Christians, don't live this way. So James confronts these merchants by saying, you do not know what will happen tomorrow, because only God sees tomorrow. Only God controls tomorrow. Only God writes our future. And James gives a picture of that. He says, your life is a vapor. Your life is not a concrete block. It's not a brick or a mountain or a mighty oak tree. Your life on this earth is a vapor. You see it for a moment and it's gone. The breeze moves and it vanishes. So we learned this week, we found out this week by some things that have happened in our own church family, how temporary life is on this earth and how fragile and how unpredictable life is on this earth. And thankfully, Mike was a mighty, mighty man of God. We know exactly where Mike is today in the arms of Jesus. But life is fragile. We don't know what tomorrow might hold. Mike asked me twice in the last couple months if we would sing a song at his funeral, and Mike and I kind of laughed back and forth and said, yeah, and what are you going to sing at mine, Mike? But the song was, I know who holds tomorrow. I may not know what's happening all around me. I may not know what's going to happen tomorrow, but I know who holds tomorrow, and that is the Lord. And that is exactly the way Mike lived his life. So James tells us the right way to live our lives. He said, instead, you ought to be saying, if the Lord wills, then we will do this or that. These are not magic words. This is not a religious habit. It's not just something that we say. To say the Lord willing means I recognize that God is sovereign. I recognize that my dependence is on the Lord. I acknowledge Him, that He has control of all of my plans. And also, I welcome His leadership in my life. It means I submit my plans to you, God, before I carry them out. And examples of what Lord willing looks like is we plan to get married, Lord willing, or we think we're going to move next year, Lord willing, or I'd like to change jobs, Lord willing. It's not pessimism. It's not fear. It is faith. It is saying, God, I want you to be in control of my life. I want you to lead me. I want you to direct me. I want to depend on you. And I also want you to delay me or block anything that could come into my life that might not be your will for my life too. One of the clearest scriptural examples of someone who made plans without regard to God's will is the rich fool in the parable that Jesus taught. In Luke 12, verses 16 through 18, Jesus tells of a man whose land produced so much that he didn't have room for it. And he came up with a plan. His plan was to tear down barns and build larger ones, to store everything and to retire early, and then to live life being merry. Eat, drink, and be merry, he thought to himself. That's what I'll do. So the man had this 5-year plan and a retirement plan and this prosperity plan. There is nothing wrong with building barns. There is nothing wrong for planning for the future. There is nothing wrong with saying any of those things. There's nothing wrong with saving your money. But the problem is that this rich young fool left God out of every plan that he had. Not once did he say, Lord willing. Not once did he say, God, what do you want me to do? Show me your directions. Not once did he say, Lord, how can I use this wealth for your glory? Or what can I do to honor you for this blessing? Nope. He spoke only to himself. He said, I will do. I will build. I will store. I will say to my soul. So his life motto could have been something like, my will be done. But God said to him, you fool. Why? Because he made plans for years to come, but he forgot. He may not have another hour. He may not have another day. And God said to him, tonight your soul is required of you. Your life is over. Now, what becomes of all your plans? So he prepared for everything except eternity. He wrote out the next 30 years, but he didn't ask God what was going to happen in the next day, in the next hour. Jesus ends this parable with this lesson. So is he who lays up treasure for himself and is not rich toward God. So the rich young fool is actually an illustration of James 4:13 through 16. He said, today or tomorrow, I'll do this, I'll do that, I'll make a profit. But he never once said, if the Lord wills. So how do we live, Lord willing? How do we live it rather than just saying, Lord willing? Well, pray before you plan. Before you make that budget, before you say yes to that commitment, before you take that new job, before you buy that house, you pray. God is not just an emergency contact, and we all need to remember that. He is the CEO. He is the author of your life. He is the one who is in charge. He is the one in charge of every plan that you make. So when Paul ministered, he often said things like that too. In 1 Corinthians 16:7, he says, I hope to come to you soon, if the Lord permits. And in Romans 1:10, he said, I plan to visit you if the Lord wills. So even Paul, God's apostle, didn't assume that he controlled his own schedule. God did. We need to invite God into our decisions. We need to pray prayers like, Lord, close every door that isn't from you. If this isn't your will, and I said this before, block it. Lead me into your way, your everlasting way. God will never force himself into your plans, but he will gladly guide you if you'll let him. So choose obedience instead of those outcomes. You can't control the economy. You can't control the weather. You can't control people's reactions. You can't control what people say. You can't even control your own tomorrow. But you can control your obedience today. Say, Lord, I don't know about tomorrow. I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. But I know that you control my tomorrow. Help me to be faithful today, Lord willing. And James invites us to this humble, God-centered life, a life that says, God, you are in control of my life. You hold my tomorrow. You lead my steps. My life belongs to you. So let this phrase, Lord willing, not just be something that we say, but let it be something that we actually believe. We celebrate Thanksgiving this week, and we have so much to be thankful for. Even amidst the grief and the tragedy, we still have so much to be thankful for. I'm thankful for your prayers for our family and for our church family. I'll pray for yours. I hope you have a wonderful week celebrating the family this week and just being thankful for all of God's blessings. Lord willing, I'll see you next week. Have a good week.